Rock Hudson died of AIDS. It shook the Hollywood community into action. But there are some who say that Hollywood still has a double standard, that actors who carry the AIDS virus have been blacklisted. Some of those accusations come from an actor who died last week of AIDS. Today, his widow will tell us why, and we'll meet an actor who says because he's gay, he's out of the movies.
It's a homophobic town, and it's a homophobic country, let's face it.
Whatever the rules are today in Hollywood, they must be changed so that people like Brad can come forward before they die.
Hi, everybody. I'm Faith Daniels, and welcome to A Closer Look. Last night, Hollywood turned out to raise money for the fight against AIDS. That's the picture the movie industry wants us to see, but it is not the whole story. Because at the same time the industry wears its heart on its sleeve, it virtually blacklists actors and actresses who turn out to be HIV positive. How bad is it? Well, when rumors circulated that Burt Reynolds had AIDS, which were not true, his career was almost ruined. George Lewis takes a closer look at Hollywood's double standard on AIDS.
They came last night, as they have before, to pledge support and money in the fight against AIDS. But this Hollywood fundraiser had special meaning.
Whatever the rules are today in Hollywood, they must be changed so that people like Brad can come forward before they die.
The death of actor Brad Davis from AIDS last week has touched a nerve in Hollywood. After his death, Davis' wife released to the Los Angeles Times a book proposal the actor had been writing. In it, he charged the entertainment industry of having a double standard, of publicly showing support while privately harboring fears about AIDS. Davis said because of Hollywood's hypocrisy, he was afraid to let anyone know he was infected with the HIV virus.
I have a lot of clients who are in the industry who are fearful of turning in insurance claims for fear that once they do, their HIV status will be known.
Though 6 years have passed since Rock Hudson died of AIDS, even the suspicion of infection can sideswipe a career.
Whether you were a leper or not, I was there, and I couldn't get a job.
With notable exceptions, projects about AIDS or homosexuality are rare in Hollywood. Though the movie Longtime Companion, about the effect of AIDS on a group of New York men, was critically acclaimed, the producers had a tough time getting financing.
Hollywood is a homophobic town, and it's a homophobic country, let's face it.
While Hollywood proclaims its concern about the AIDS crisis, the movie moguls continue to worry about the bottom line. Others in this community want the industry to rearrange some of its priorities.
I just have a hope that the industry will start making commitments that aren't just verbal, to stand behind the children of the industry, all the people that are in it, and, to take care of their own.
For A Closer Look, George Lewis, NBC News, Hollywood.
When we come back, we'll talk with Brad Davis's widow, Susan Bluestein. Brad Davis never made it to the front ranks of Hollywood actors, but he was extremely talented. You may remember some of his best work in Midnight Express. Susan Bluestein was married to Brad Davis for 15 years. She kept his secret for the last 6. And after his death, she decided to go public with his views on Hollywood and AIDS. Welcome. I mean, that your strength and courage to just be here is truly inspirational. Was it difficult to keep a secret of that magnitude for so long?
It was very difficult to keep a secret. It was very hard, but we believed that it was absolutely urgent to do it. And we believed it on a level across the board. That included family, our closest friends, and along the way, a lot of people had to sort of leave our lives.
Brad delayed treatment, as I understand it, for years because he was so afraid that word would get out. Treatment that could have potentially prolonged his life. He was that paranoid about what would happen to him in his career?
Yes, he was. He was terrified of disclosure. And it did keep him from getting treatment earlier. It's absolutely true.
And even when he did seek treatment, he was afraid to put in insurance claims for it?
Yes.
Do you think his fears were unfounded? You're a casting director. You've seen the other side of it.
I couldn't really say. There had been no successful precedent to say his fears were not founded. And we're both in the industry. We have a little girl. We could not take the chance whether they were or they weren't. It was just not a chance we could take.
Do you know how Brad got AIDS?
We think that it possibly could have been prior to his getting sober in 1981. He was a very heavy drinker, alcoholic, and he was an IV drug user, and no one knew the consequences at that time. It's very possible it was through that.
How did you take the news when you found out that he was HIV positive?
I was shocked. I could not believe it. But at the time, I didn't even have any clue of the scope of what was actually being read. And it was a form letter. It was a letter that was very cut and dry, and that's how I found out.
A form letter from?
From the hospital, where Brad routinely gave blood, the hospital where my daughter was born.
You must have been, while shocked and feeling terrible for him, also personally afraid that you could have been infected.
Absolutely. And I had to wait until he finished doing the movie that he was doing for him to come back to take any sort of action at all, which is to get tested and which is to see if he felt a mistake had been made. He couldn't believe it. He said, don't worry, this is a mistake.
And of course it was not.
And of course it was not a mistake.
He had started to write a proposal for a book, so apparently he had intended on going public himself.
Yes.
Why did he delay going public for so long?
The only reason that he delayed going public is because he really just wanted to work as long as possible. And the last movie that he did was the end of June. He finished that. Because he wanted to see that my daughter and I would be taken care of. It's very simple.
Why have you decided now to carry the word for him?
Because I made this promise to him. He asked me, we discussed this. Do you think that you're up to this? This was my wish. This is what I want to do. I want to speak to the people out there that are suffering. I want to speak to the industry. And I can't do it now. And do you think you can? And I said I could. I said I thought I could. I said that I would do it. And he really wanted to give back something to the community that helped him. There were so many wonderful people. Not so many, I should say really just a few. So many would be an overstatement. There were a few people who helped him so enormously. It's just the gratitude was too hard to explain. And I think he wanted to give something back to them in their fight, which is a daily struggle, year in and year out.
Do you think it's going to make a difference? You're a Hollywood director. You see the other side, a Hollywood casting director. You see the other side of it as well.
It's too hard, it's too soon to tell whether it will really make a difference. All I can hope for is that other voices will come forward. That the industry will be forced to now handle this other issue. They have come forward with fundraising. They have come forward with the money that they can give. And now they have to take on this new challenge. It's very, very important that the voices come forward. And that was really all I hope to accomplish. I hope that it can change.
Well, and certainly that is the hope of many others, too. We appreciate your courage and really sympathize with you and your daughter.
Thank you very much.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to hear from another voice, someone who is going to take up the mantle, Michael Kearns, when we come back. Michael Kearns is an actor who says that being openly gay has had a negative impact on his career. His credits include movies such as Body Double, Kentucky Fried Movie, and his TV roles include appearances on Cheers, Murder, She Wrote, and perhaps most notably as John Boy's friend on The Waltons. Michael Kearns, welcome.
Thank you.
This whole issue is one that hits very close to your heart, in fact, maybe even a little too close.
Yes, it does. And I was so moved by Brad Davis's death that I have decided to go public with my HIV status, which is positive. And I feel that someone has to speak out. And while I am not a major star, I am a respected actor. And my HIV status should be immaterial to my success or my future as an actor. And I've always fought
for 15 years I have fought as an openly gay actor, so now I will continue my fight until my dying breath as an HIV-positive infected actor.
Well, you should be very proud of the step that you're taking. Brad Davis felt that he had to keep it a secret. He opened the door, I guess, for you to come forward, but still you must worry that you're jeopardizing your career.
Well, I don't care about my career. I mean, I care that I can act, that I have created and constructed a career whereby I can act in the theater. He did not necessarily have that privilege, plus he was, you know, he had a wife and a family, obviously, and he had other restrictions. I feel a little bit freer because of circumstances. And, you know, I do it for Brad Davis to some extent. I do it for myself, and I do it for everyone who's HIV, whether they're actors or not. I mean, being HIV is not something to be ashamed of. And unfortunately, because of Hollywood, for no other reason, Brad Davis had to be ashamed or had to live a life that we assumed there was some shame involved. And this should not be. It should not happen to anyone else. Brad Davis should be the last HIV actor to die in the way that he died. And his death is not in vain. And I just hope that things change. I hope that we go beyond the glitzy, glammo fundraisers and that behavior starts to change.
Brad was the first actor that I have ever heard who came forward. He came forward, though, after his death in a letter brought out by his wife. This is the first time you have ever said that you were HIV positive. Do you know of any other actor who has come forward in the way that you just have?
I don't, no. And, you know, I was appalled during the Rock Hudson death. Again, homophobia cannot be separated from this issue. Hollywood has been homophobic since day one. And so, in essence, what Hollywood has to recover from or heal from is the inflicted wounds that have been cast from day one in Hollywood. AIDS is simply a new issue. Being HIV infected is a new issue. But the homophobia is so firmly, insidiously entrenched in the town that we have to heal from that before we can start dealing with the issue of HIV infection.
Brad's book proposal, or letter, whatever you want to call it, sort of outlines a double standard that exists. But from what you're saying, you almost take it to a point of absolute hypocrisy.
Well, yes, there are exceptions, and they must be noted. There are some television shows that are exceptions to the rule. Joel Schumacher is filming And the Band Played On. He is an exception. He will be seeing gay actors who are known to be gay. I mean, there are exceptions, I want to say that the hypocrisy is enormous. If this had been a disease that affected white heterosexual males, how many movies would Hollywood have made by now? How many? We can have fundraiser after fundraiser where we put on our fancy clothes, write our checks, but does the behavior change? Do they open the doors for content about HIV and AIDS? No, is the answer. Where's the major motion picture? There are a few things on television, yes. Again, those should be acknowledged and praised. However, there is a great disparity between the behavior at a benefit and the behavior that goes on the next morning. The same fag jokes are told. The same amount of hypocrisy exists within those offices. And that is what has to stop. That's what Susan Bluestein is saying. That's what I am saying. We are passionate. I don't know what else I can do other than say, here I am, and I'm going to fight it.
Well, your courage is admirable, and so is Susan's, actually. We're going to take a break,
is.
and we're going to come back, and we are going to meet someone from the Broadway community to see how Broadway has responded to the AIDS crisis in a moment. We're back on a closer look. Broadway Cares, and the man who heads that organization is Roger MacFarlane, a group that distributes money to AIDS service organizations. Welcome. Why is Broadway different than Hollywood?
There's a couple of reasons. First of all, we don't play to the mass market, and we play to a somewhat more sophisticated audience. It's also important to note, though, that even the people who are out in the business, who get support, who are able to work on Broadway, the producers know it, the publicists know it, we know it, but their audiences, by and large, don't know it. There's still great fear and prejudice about people with AIDS in this country.
You were a very, very good friend of Brad's. You helped him when he finally needed medical care. You helped him seek treatment. Do you think that all the fears he had about the double standard were justified?
I think so. I haven't heard anyone who knows anything about Hollywood or Broadway who would have given Brad different advice. Consistently, everyone I asked, Susan asked, Brad put feelers out, names on it or otherwise, I think people really believe he would not have worked if he had disclosed this.
What do you think is going to happen to Michael here now that he's taken this bold step today?
I hope Michael has 25 offers tomorrow. And
do you think that that hope is realistic?
Michael's a terrific actor, and I think that's the issue here, is if he's able to work and willing to work, he should be able to work. The real point here is that people with HIV are working every day on every set and every show, not just the actors behind the scenes. And because of the fear and prejudice in this country, we don't talk about it, and those people have to suffer in isolation. Michael's a terrific actor. He'll work a long time, and I hope we can take one more step here.
He'll work a long time, but will he work on Broadway or will he work in Hollywood?
We'll have to see. There's a lot of reasons people tried out in the business about why we don't hire people with HIV or why it's not discussed publicly. But as Susan said, I think you do it one step at a time, and I hope that's the legacy that Brad left us, is by coming forward and saying that. And he did beautiful work up until he became very sick, and I hope that's the lesson Hollywood learns from this.
And now that you're taking up the mantle, if you will, do you really think, I mean, I know you hope you can make a difference, but do you think that you can make a difference when the attitudes are so entrenched?
I have to believe that I can make a difference. And I try not to live in a world that is restricted by how things are. I like to live in a world in the way things should be. And this simply should not be an issue. So I'm going to proceed as if it isn't an issue. I'm going to be available to go to work on any movie set or any television set or any theatrical set, and I'm going to be ready and willing. That's all I can really do, is be there and be a good actor, which is what I've been fighting, for many years.
You've known you were HIV positive since 1988. Would you have come forward and made this statement had it not been for Brad Davis's courage initially?
I don't think I would have. I can't begin to say what an effect it had on me. When I read those words in the Los Angeles Times, it just hit me, the pain and the sorrow that he and Susan had to go through in this ordeal, plus the personal freedom that was lost, the fact that he could not be open and get the love and support from an industry which owed him to some degree. The fact that he had to remain silent is a huge tragedy that I will not go through. And I will not let myself go through it. And I don't want anyone else to have to go through it. So that is what moves me. I was afraid. Even working primarily in the theater as I do, I still had reservations because I have bookings 6 months in advance. And I realized that this could be an issue if somebody wanted to make it one. But I don't care anymore. I feel much better. We're only as sick as our secrets.
We appreciate you joining us today, truly. Closer look comes back after this. We're back on a closer look with Michael Kearns and Roger MacFarlane. You just told me a little while ago that you're really sort of looking at the world with these rose-colored glasses on, that, you can make a difference and it can, you have ideals of a different world. But, the attitudes are so entrenched, and any time change comes, it doesn't come without a price. And it usually seems as though the first people who step forward pay that price.
Well, first of all, Brad has paid that price, and literally thousands of people who have died before him who weren't even able to take that step. And there's certainly the possibility that Michael and Susan might never work again. Have a little more faith in that. I mean, it has been 10 years, and there hasn't been enough done quickly enough or well enough. But nothing changes if we don't take this step. And I think that's why Susan and Michael are particularly brave, in that that price has to be paid. There's too much suffering. It's wrong, and it has to stop. And the only way it stops is for people to come forward.
Yeah, and when I watch the Hollywood actors and the producers who walk around publicly with the red ribbons on, as you are now, I don't think that they don't care. No. But the Hollywood mindset is very strong. I
think what's really important here is that the heat shouldn't be on the actors to come forth. Michael's brave, Brad's brave, Susan's brave. What's really going to make a difference here is when one of the big producers calls up one of these actors or directors or someone we know has HIV or they know has HIV, and fearlessly works with them and does some credible creative work too on this subject.
And as soon as that makes money, then it's all over.
But that's another important point. It does make money. Early Frost, Ryan White's story, Our Son, the various benefits that have been on TV. That notion that AIDS is somehow not commercial is also a fallacy. Those are just the excuses people throw up to explain their fear and prejudice.
And you're currently working now in a play.
I'm working, I do a piece in which I play 6 HIV-infected people of various walks of life.
Closer look in the back of the Roger MacFarlane and Michael Kearns, we thank you so much for talking with us. And your courage is truly to be admired. Continued good health to you.
Thank you.
That's it for us on A Closer Look today. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone.